Guys, welcome back to another Broadcast's YouTube video. Today we got our top 24 wide receivers for the last week of the fantasy regular season, week 14. And boys, before we get into it, check out our absolutely free group chat on Chalkboard. On the Chalkboard, we have a full free rankings. This video is only top 24 wide receivers. We got 48 ranked on there, 36 RBs, 20 tight ends, 20 QBs. We got waiver wire targets, trade advice, so much match winning stuff. Go check it out absolutely free. First link in the description. First receiver, this guy has been insane. Devontae Adams on Thursday night against the Rams. It sounds like a tough matchup with Jalen Ramsey, but he does not follow. The Rams right now, I want to say, are 26th against wide receivers, and Adams has been absolutely balling out. Next up, at wide receiver 2, we got another guy that's been so good this year. It's Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, this Dolphins clear wide receiver 1. Hopefully Tua plays. I think he should be able to play, and if he can go, Tyreek Hill, an absolute beast in week 14. Justin Jefferson up next, another player. He has been so good, and it's a great matchup against the Lions. Yeah, tons of upside here. And next up, fourth player in this tier, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown. He has been balling out the past 2 weeks, averaging close to 30 points per game in those 2 weeks. Might even be more. I just know it's around that number. Looking like that week 1 and 2 Amon-Ra, getting so many targets, 12 targets last week. I think it was 11 catches. Absolutely balling out versus the Vikings. Could be a pretty high scoring game. Love this matchup for Amon-Ra. Last receiver in this tier, we got Stephon Diggs. Don't love the matchup against the Jets. I want to say they're for sure top 10. I want to say even higher, top 5 against wide receivers. They've been super good, but it's in Buffalo, and Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen have that elite connection. Always have tons of upside. Our first player in the next tier is Jamar Chase. He came back to this Bengals offense, got the most targets, had the most receptions. T. Higgins looked a little bit irrelevant. I think T. Higgins gets back, but Jamar Chase is still that wide receiver 1. Has insane boom upside every single week, and he's a great play. Another player with a matchup I absolutely hate, but he still has to be started. DeAndre Hopkins, he has been getting absolutely force-fed targets. Again, like I say for a lot of players, tons of upside. Just hate the matchup against the Patriots. And next up at wide receiver 8, we have A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown last week, he got his revenge against the Tennessee Titans. 2 deep touchdowns. The 3 weeks before that, though, was pretty disappointing. He has been pretty up and down. I think every week for Goddard not playing, Goddard for sure being out, helps A.J. Brown get more targets, and Devontae Smith gets more targets. The matchup is decent. The Giants are pretty good against wide receivers, fantasy points, but they are pretty banged up in the secondary. A.J. Brown is still a must start. And last player in this tier, CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb had a super tough matchup last week against the number 1 ranked Colts. Still put up 20 points. Got a touchdown. Balled out against them this week. Plays the Texans. Don't expect them to pass a ton because the Texans horrible against run. And expect the Cowboys to be out big time. So don't expect them, like I just said, don't expect them to pass a ton. Not tons of upside, but CD has to be started. And our first player in this next tier is Garrett Wilson. It's gotten to the point where if you look at the depth chart and you see Mike White as the starting QB for the Jets, you put in Garrett Wilson. He is a top 10 option for us this week. Buffalo, they haven't been amazing against wide receivers. I think they're around the middle of the pack. The defense overall is pretty good though, but Garrett Wilson right now, so many targets coming his way. Mike White loves him. I think it was it 15 targets? Somewhere around there for sure. Crazy stats for Garrett Wilson in week 13. Wide receiver 11, we got Keenan Allen. Again, he balled out against the Raiders. Went absolutely crazy last week. This week, plays the Dolphins, who struggle pretty big time. Their defense struggles on the road. It's Sunday night in LA. Expect tons of points for both teams. Love the upside for Keenan. And our last player in this tier, we got Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin, again, wasn't amazing last week on Monday night, but again, if you got that touchdown at the end of the game and if it didn't get called back, would have had a pretty nice day for fantasy. Again, way more targets than Mike Evans. Looks like a better start than Mike Evans. Love Chris Godwin. Next up, we got DK Metcalf. He has been absolutely balling out lately. Last week, over 25 points. Week before that, 15 targets. He has been getting absolutely force-fed. Geno Smith has been balling out, supporting DK and Tyler Lockett. Love the upside against the Panthers. And next up, at wide receiver 14, we got T. Higgins. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase came back. Only 5 targets, only 3 receptions to get the touchdown, which saved his week. But if we remember at the earlier part of the year, even when Jamar Chase was playing, T. Higgins was still having his way, still getting good fantasy points. He still has to be started. Next up, Tyler Lockett, like exactly what I just said about DK Metcalf. Over 25 points last week. Geno has been balling out. Then that means he can support both DK and Tyler Lockett. They have both been so good. And same thing with DK. Love the matchup against the Panthers. And our last player in this tier, we have Christian Kirk. The Jaguars got blown out last week. Still got 16.5 fantasy points. Not a bad game at all. This week, though, an amazing matchup against the Titans, who are currently the worst defense in the NFL for fantasy points against wide receivers. They've just let A.J. Brown embarrass them. I think Christian Kirk is this Jags wide receiver 1. He's a good start in week 14. Next up, we got Jalen Waddle. He was awful last week. Only 1.9 points, 1 catch for 9 yards. But he did leave the game for a little bit with a leg injury. He's still questionable with that leg injury, so he might not even play this week, still up in the air. But again, he just hasn't been super consistent. If he's fully healthy, he should be a little bit higher. But again, his upside has been pretty capped lately. And next up, we have Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel, man. There's just too many mouths to feed in this San Fran offense for him to be super elite. Still did get 10 targets though, but also Ayuk got 9 targets, CMC got 9 targets. Or no, CMC got 10 targets. If the 49ers just don't have to throw a lot, I don't think Deebo's upside is super high. He's a decently safe play because you know he's going to get at least some volume, but his upside is for sure capped. Next up, it seems like this tier is just a bunch of big names that have fallen down a little bit on the rankings. We got Mike Evans. Mike Evans last week, 9.9 against the Saints. His connection with Tom Brady has just been kind of off recently. Even before last week, against the Browns, 9 targets, only 2 catches. Again, I don't know what's up with them. Hopefully things are connecting soon, but until then, he is a mid wide receiver too. And our last player in this tier, we have Marquise Hollywood Brown. First week back, 2 weeks ago, put up 10.6 points, 8 targets, which is pretty solid, is the clear wide receiver too. Diop is going to get most of the red zone targets. The targets might be similar, but Diop's going to get more deep bumps. Marquise, though, still a solid start. First player in the last tier, Amari Cooper. Pretty bad week last week, but it wasn't really his fault. Watson was just awful against the Texans. Amari Cooper still commanded, I want to say it was almost a 40% target share, which is pretty crazy. He had 9 targets and Watson only threw like 20, 21, 22 passes. So not quite 40, but still pretty up there. Again, don't love his upside until Watson proven that he's back to his old form. Our second player in this tier, we have Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith and AJ Brown are basically getting every single target in this wide receiver core with Dallas Goedert out. Jalen Hurts throws the ball, it's probably going to AJ Brown or Devontae Smith. Over 20 points last week, had that early touchdown. He's a good play. Second last player of the video, wide receiver 23, we got Josh Palmer. This might be his first time on the list, not too sure about that, but he has been getting absolutely force-fed targets. Over the last 6 weeks, I believe he has 58 targets, so just under 10 targets per game on average. We're assuming Mike Williams doesn't play, and like we said with Keenan, love the matchup against the Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. Tons of potential fantasy points, and yeah, he's been getting absolutely force-fed targets. And our last player of the video, our wide receiver 24, we have Jerry Jeudy. This Broncos offense has been so bad. Jerry Jeudy was on a snap count and still had the second most targets, just behind Greg Dulcich. And if Courtland Sutton is out, it's kind of up in the air. That does make Jerry Jeudy even better. This Broncos offense is so bad, but Russ got to throw the ball to somebody, and Jerry Jeudy is the wide receiver 1. And guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Again, check out the Chalkboard, completely free group chat app with all of our extra rankings. Thanks again for watching. See you guys next time.